Don't want a smallish room. So I put on a title that I thought nobody would want to go to that, because if I thought about, we're 2 chalk ices short of a squirrel, right, people might turn up. So that's one of my biases. We will explain this later. Right, I used to work in the NHS in England and Wales, and one of the projects I did was the MRI scanning, and I got to hang around with the MRI scientists, and we got to look at brain scans and everything else. And they predicted the biggest change that's going to happen in the way we think about ourselves as humans, and that is going to be brain scans, and where we can actually see what's happening when we're thinking. Yeah, because as I look at you all just now, I've got no idea what you're thinking. Imagine if I had a brain scan on you all. I could see who was asleep, who was thinking about lunch, who thought, oh my God, I've walked into the wrong room, but I don't want to leave because it's embarrassing now to go. I want to talk about estimation. A lot of the anxiety for moving from anything else to Agile is around about estimation, because we used to have a big cult of estimation where we'd have lots of big plans, we'd do 18-month plans, and there was always lots of estimation. There was project managers, there was PMOs, and lots of large organizations have still got that. Anyone still in a large organization with a PMO? Yeah. So a lot of Agile is 12 guys in a team with their own pipeline, releasing stuff out to an app. Yeah. If that's your setup, a lot of what I'm going to say is probably less relevant. If you're in a large organization, if you do have to work with projects that aren't Agile, if you do have to work with project managers and teams that aren't Agile, this will help a lot. So, who, what, where, when, why? Why do we want that? Well, because we're usually quite bad at estimating. This talk is going to look at why we're bad at estimating. Okay, and the summary point is, well, we need to work with that. We're not going to evolutionary change very quickly. Anyone seen this before? This is the cone of uncertainty. Yeah, so typically we hire some analysts to think about how big a project is here, and that's the time when we've got at least idea what we're doing. We should always give estimates around about here. We should do some tests and learns and things around about here, so we've got a good sense. I work in Edinburgh at Royal Bank of Scotland, and my kids are in the west coast of Scotland, and my ex-wife will say, what time are you picking the kids up? And I go, I can't tell you, it's a complex adaptive system. I'm going through 2 cities, but I'll call you when I get through Glasgow, because it's a straight road after that, and I could usually estimate where I'm going. Yeah? Anytime the PMO or large programs ask you, especially if it's an Agile project, I'm going to talk about which project's more suitable to Agile. Yeah, just say it's a complex adaptive system. I'm going to go through 2 cities. I'll call you when I get past the last city.
Does she like it when you say that?
No. But she's my ex-wife, so. The reason the business cares is oftentimes we've given estimates here around about base costs, and they've kind of ran into contingency and then ran it in management reserves. I've been in several organizations where the projects are coming out of the management reserves, just the only place to fund them. So over our kind of cash flow, and then over here we're kind of business threatening. And I'm sure some of us have been in those things where, if we don't get the product out, if we don't get the solution in place. And one of the big things around about here is, how does it feel when you're in that zone? Yeah. Anyone ever been there in companies? How does it feel just in terms of, just put some words to it. Just.
Stressful.
Yeah, it's not nice. It's not a truthful environment either. There's no psychological safety. Yeah, if you see the program director walking down the corridor, you'll kind of like try and move. I once got called into the NHS to solve a project that was gone late, and the head of development saw me walking along the corridor towards him. It's a very long corridor. And he turned to go into the door to avoid me and banged at the wall. He was so scared when he saw me. I'm a nice guy. Yeah, but it's just the situation makes everyone the worst. But it's okay, Agile came to the rescue, and we came up with these numbers. So everyone's seen these number cards. And we're using the Fibonacci series, rounded, because that's scientific. If we're using something scientific, it's got to be good. Yep, scientific. We've got some biases, like the one I spoke about earlier, around about, we'll all just look to one person in the room because none of us know. So now we force teams that maybe don't know that much to put a number up. And over time, that team will calibrate. And then we come up with the burn down report. Yeah. Hands up if you've ever changed the burn down report to make it look like you actually did burn down, so the PMO didn't come around. Part of this talk is simulated from the last course, the last people I taught to do Scrum. And they were saying, oh, we're doing the burn down chart again. Oh no. That's the one we always change by moving stories at the next sprint, so it always comes down, so nobody comes down and says you're late. But are burn down charts, are things like that any better than the old Gantt charts and this kind of, you know, I know it's talked about this now, but this kind of, you have a commitment and you haven't made your commitment, and sprint goals and you haven't made your sprint goal. So, like I say, I'm an Agile coach, do lots of training in new teams. When new teams come along and they start going through story points, they really get cognitive dissonance, they really struggle, and mature teams have no problem at all. Yeah, they always make sure that the points more or less add up to what the last sprint was, and they don't think about it too much. New teams think all the time. And that made me think, what's going on? What's of interest? First of all, I thought, has everyone seen this model? So when you do something new, like cycling a bike, yeah. First of all, you're conscious and competent. First time in your driving lesson, you're conscious and competent. Worst place to be. I'm kind of conscious and competent at the moment. I'm hoping to go up to conscious, competent, and then a bit more. And I thought, well, you know, are the teams just jumping to here? And then I thought, maybe that's, yeah. But why do they change so quickly? It's almost like one sprint later, everyone's estimating quite happily. And then I thought, perhaps it's the Dunning-Kruger effect. Anyone ever heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Yeah. Anyone ever heard of President Trump? Who knew healthcare was so hard? Well, anyone knew anything about healthcare? Over here is knowledge, yeah? So over here is things that are really, that people know about. So if you're over here, you can have very high confidence in what you do because you know nothing about it. Yeah. And I thought, well, if Dunning-Kruger was the effect, the new teams should be actually very confident using the story points. Yeah, so it's not Dunning-Kruger. It's not just because they're new to estimating, or they're a new team and they haven't kind of formulated, or they're new to the Scrum framework. And then I went into a little bit of what this talks about now, which is really how this is your brain. This is how your brain thinks. This is your brain on story points. So let's go back. Human brain evolved over a very long period of time. So 3.5 to now, a lot of what was in the 3.5 million brain you have now. Yeah. Anyone like sweets? I love sweets. You know why I love sweets? Because when that chimp was walking across the Sahara or the savannah, and they saw like the only sweet thing was honey. And they saw like, a hive, they go and get the honey and they get calories, and it could be the difference between life and death. And there's almost like an evolutionary, if it's something sweet, take it on board, it's going to help you. Yeah. Fortunately, we now live in like a world of abundance if you go down the supermarket, but you're still hardwired to eat that next sweet thing, That element of the brain's still there. What's kind of happened, and we'll talk about it a bit later, is we've layered more on top. And you can almost see that by the shape of the skull as well. Right, pop question. When did we start talking? Not today, but as a species. According to Chomsky, and it's really rough, it's about 100,000 years ago. So prior to 100,000 years ago, nobody talked. We maybe grunted. We probably use sign language more than talking. Yeah, chimps will sign language and things. There's lots of theories about why talking's there. Some is for childcare, others ones say it's for hunting. So we'd all get up in the morning, do our daily scrum, decide to go and get the mammoth. We needed to kind of come up with a plan. Not sure what the story points of a mammoth are. Numbers. How long have we been using numbers? Yeah, about 3,000 maybe. If you even go back to the Egyptians, they weren't using numbers per se as numbers, they were using symbols. Actually, it's like the old, the American Indians, had like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, many. That's the kind of way it worked. So about 4,000 years. Our brains aren't really, kind of geared for working in numbers. And all of a sudden we're now in this world that's full of sweets and full of numbers. So it's no wonder sometimes we struggle a bit. Yeah, so that was early us. It's not that far away from where we are now. We used to have lots of systems that were hardwired, and we still got them. The other day I was driving along the M8 and I put the visor down for the sun and a spider jumped out. And even although I was in a car driving at 80 miles an hour overtaking a lorry, I still jumped because the part of my brain that, had I been a logical robot, I wouldn't have jumped. I'd have went, well, that's a garden spider, it's not going to hurt me. So we've got all these, we've got all these things in there. Comparison, yeah, is older. It's older than language. So we could compare things, far older than that. If you look at some of the art and things, go back 27, about 200,000 years, even before language. So that's a much older system. If you show a chimp, 2 grapes and 1 grape, it'll go for the 2 grapes. Yeah. So one of the things that part of the reason we use the Fibonacci series is because we are more closely compared to comparison than numbers. Okay, shut your eyes. Shut your eyes. Everyone, shut your eyes. Okay, how many windows in the room? Okay. Get your eyes shut. Yeah, what's the book on the table? You all walk past that?
No.
Didn't see the front.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to open your eyes again, one of the things we do is we actually live in a construct of the world, not the actual world. And it's quite scary when you think about driving. So sometimes you'll have driven a route that you always drive and you won't remember anything about the route. Yeah. We kind of got this. My wife says she can talk and I won't hear her, even though I'm in the same room. Yeah, it's just because I filter what's coming in and out. So walking around here, walking around the building, when you went downstairs to the coffee room and there was about a couple hundred people there, you didn't see a couple hundred people. In your brain, you had an algorithm for how people normally react, and that's why you didn't bump into anyone. You didn't have a fight with anyone. You didn't try and pour coffee at the same time because you had a ballet going on in your head, but very much almost like an abstract ballet. Yeah. The three, going back to the the evolution of the brain, we've got this reptilian instinctive brain bit. So if I step on your foot, you go ouch. Yeah, that's all the reptilian stuff. The way I like to think of it sometimes is if you're in a coma, everything that still happens when you're in a coma is probably down the reptilian bit. You've got mammalian feeling brain. Now, that's when we became social animals, like the small scurrying around things. So a lot of what we do in Agile is talking about teamwork and things, and groupthink and how we all work together. And that's much more in the mammalian thing. The hierarchical tribe thing's all mammalian. And on top of that, you've got the primate thinking cortex brain, and that's the one that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but that's the one that we tend to use when we're at our best, we're thinking about things. You're probably using this just now, hopefully. Unless you came in the wrong room and you're just dying to leave and you're probably using this. There's other bits going on in the brain as well. So there's the conscious, subconscious. Okay. This is the bit, when you're driving, and you've driven a long time, you've just done it automatically. Or there's really something I don't like about Shelby. Not sure what it is. Yeah, that's my subconscious probably pattern matching and thing. Yeah. And this barrier is actually quite small. At the top we've got the analysis, thinking, plan, short-term memory, and that's all the good stuff we want to get into when we're doing estimating. But actually, when we're pulling up story cards, we're probably using a lot more of the long-term memory, emotions, feelings, habits, relationships, patterns. And down there, down all the way down to intuition. What's really good about that, or really kind of focusing on that, is sometimes we say, when we're using story points, we don't have to kind of do a mathematic formula to make the story points work. It's just what you feel. So we're trying to use all of the brain, so that's quite good. Part of the problem is the subconscious mind filters things. So if you had a really bad experience, you might not remember it. Five people here could have been in the same project. Yep. And one of you could remember it as the best project of your life, and 4 people could think it was the worst project of your life. And if you went to go back to a key element of that project to re-estimate it, you'd re-estimate it accordingly to how you felt about it. And if it was your best experience of your life, you'll give it a low number. If it was the worst experience of your life, you'll give it a high number. I've seen technical people give things such a high number that nobody will ever want to go and do it again, because it was a complete death march. Love this book. This is Jim Benson, my friend. I read this book, and it's the first book that I've read in ages. And I went, this guy really gets me. And he wrote about why plans fail. Really, it's a short book. I read it in a weekend. And that's really where I came across cognitive biases. So did anyone go to John Clapham's talk on? Yeah. I'm not going to cover a lot of that material, but it's covered in there quite well. So yeah, all the biases. He tells the story of working for a company that had set a date with investors to deliver something, but they were nowhere near it, but nobody wanted to say anything about it because the date was set with investors. There was this huge sense of fear. If you go to Wikipedia and you look up cognitive biases, these are all the known cognitive biases we have. Yeah, so far. We've probably got a bias to this as well. Lots of the biases work for us, yeah, and they helped us in evolution. So the sweet one was really good when we were starving. It's not really good now that we're in supermarkets. The anchoring bias was really good as well because it kept everyone together as a team. Groupthink was a great idea. Yeah. I'm not going to go through these. I want to show you a really kind of obvious, bias. I need two people up at the front, preferably without bad breath. Two people, please. The quicker you do this, the quicker it'll go out. All right, anyone see one of these? Yeah? It's a mirror. Okay, and everything that's in that mirror, what's your name? It's Adrian. Yeah. Right, everything in that mirror is real. Yeah? It's not a trick mirror. You can check it. I took it from my wife. It's a mirror. Yeah? Okay. What I want you to do is get really close. Really close. Like really close.
Hi, Adrian.
Look at.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Look at. Right. I want you to look at Shelby's eyes. Right. Look at the pupil in her eyes. Okay. Okay. And then change your look at the other one, and then back. That's all. Just that. Left, right, left, right. Now, Shelby, can you see Aid's eyes moving?
Yes.
Good. Now do it with a mirror. Are your eyes moving?
No.
Well, I can see them moving. Do you think Aid's lying? Should you try it? One of the things that helps, especially when swinging through branches, is we edit the movie in our head. We edit it significantly. You can't see your own eyes moving. Did you know your eyes lie to you all the time?
Yeah.
Is that scary?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've tried it, like doing a minute of moving my eyes back and forth, I still can't see them. It's like everything you see is completely edited. Thank you. That's one of the little biases there. Yes, thank you very much. So try that one at home or the hotel room or wherever tonight, yeah? It'll freak you because everything you see is an illusion. It's an edited illusion. How it works is you see the dog, it goes through the eyes, it gets turned into neurons, a picture of a dog comes up. This is, what I was saying, when everyone was downstairs in the coffee room, you weren't actually seeing everyone's features, you were just seeing the construct. Yeah. Now, I got this off of a paper that was looking at language and number development, and this is really interesting if we're looking at estimation of story points. Just to go over this quickly, the blue parts of the brain are the parts of the brain that were fired off when people were asked to estimate something. Okay? The red part of the brain is the parts that were kind of fired off when people were asked to compare things. And the pink parts of the brain are the parts that fired off in both times. So whatever's happening when we estimate, whatever's happening when we use comparison, it's using completely different parts of the brain. Would you like to see how your completely different parts of the brain get on? Right, we're going to play a game. I want you all to shout out what you see, loudly. Okay? Oh, I'll come out of range, I think. What's that? That's brown. Yeah.
Blue, red, white, green, yellow.
You're the best one so far. I think it maybe. How was that? That's a two. That's the two parts of your brain fighting. The language part of your brain's over here, right? It's reading it, and whereas the kind of the more primitive one, the recognition. Believe it or not, different parts of the brain recognize different colors. So we didn't actually start seeing reds and greens until later on. We saw blues and yellows first. Some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is in this book, where we use the analogy. You've probably seen Andy Carmichael and others will talk about the rider and the elephant. So when we're talking about two brains, one of your brain's logical side, which is like the rider and the elephant, and the more automatic, the subconscious side of your brain is like the elephants again. Yeah, if the elephant's scared, how easy is it to ride the elephant? Not good at all. And then there's another thing we're going to look at here is Kahneman's thinking around about the two-system brain, which I'll explain in a second. System one is fast, unconscious, automatic. Use it for everyday decisions. A little bit error-prone. Can anyone think of what we use when we're doing that?
What's the question?
There's two types of the brain. There's the system one, system slow. So when we're thinking, when we're thinking fast, it's unconscious, it's automatic, we're making everyday decisions. What's the kind of things we're doing?
That'd be something around.
Scared.
Hmm?
I was just going to say.
Might even something scared
Oh, for sure. That's an evolutionary advantage, isn't it? You're not sure if it's a scary thing, let's just run away anyway. Yeah? Sorry.
I was just going to say the same.
Yeah.
Just something hot and it.
Driving the car is probably there. Walking, things like that. I once did a course where we did mindful walking. If you actually think about walking, and you walk really slow, and you go think about walking, it becomes really hard to do. And it takes all your brain power up, and it's like a form of meditation. System two is the slow, unconscious, effortful, complex, and it's a lot more reliable. Yeah? Error prone, this is why we crash cars. Yeah, and you know the automated car thing? They don't have to be perfect, they're just going to be better than us. And that's most of the time we're using system one. It's probably not that hard to come up with an automatic car that's a bit better than us. This was the idea when we did the big plans and the big estimating waterfall, was we'd use this kind of a brain, the slow, conscious, effortful, good for complex decisions and reliable. Trouble is, by the time we did it, it's out of context. You don't want to use that brain when the lion's after you. And so I started thinking, are mature agile teams matching patterns rather than actually estimating? That's why it's easy. It's like low glucose, it's not taking much effort. What did we do last time? Well, new teams are actually trying to use numbers, which is a fairly new thing to us evolutionary. We're always trying to equate it to time. Then we're told not to equate it to time, so we get cognitive dissonance. Yeah, we all get worried that we're doing the wrong thing, and then fear builds up. Let's do a bit of exploring estimation and comparison. Okay, and let's see how this feels for you. How many people are in the room? Yeah, so okay, are there more than 20 people in the room? Are there more than 20 people in the room? Yeah, it's easier. Yeah, different parts of the brain, different thinking, different load, different cognitive load. When I've done this before, people start looking around and counting. Yeah, because the only way to know how many people in the room is to look around and count. When I ask people to make a comparison, nobody looks around and counts. There's enough comparison information in our mental model. Again, comparison, we have these numbers, and the reason we use the Fibonacci series is we're looking for something scalar. But it's also quite good to tie them with symbols. So we know a house is quite small, the London assembly is quite big, London Eye is bigger, the Gherkin's bigger. So if we just match to one of those areas, it's easier for us. I think that's what's going on with mature teams. Yeah, we're not worried about the numbers anymore. In our head, we've kind of symbolized the numbers. Which takes us back to there. The other thing you might notice is estimation just gets harder and harder and harder the more variables you get, whereas comparison kind of tails off. We're really good at comparing really big things, really small things. So we know system one estimates prone to error. It's got biases, blind spots, blocking things out. We've all got poor memory. And there's confabulation. So confabulation is, let's say we're in a room and you put a card up and say it's an 8. And I say, why do you think it's an 8? Why do you think it's an 8? You put 8. Your hand put 8 up. You did it. You can't undeny it. And you come up with an excuse. And it's the way that the logical brain kind of makes excuses for the other one. In patients with dementia, it happens, it's most widely known. Yeah. My grandmother, I remember once I went and her reading glasses were in the fridge. And I said, why are you reading glasses in the fridge? And she went, oh, well, they were too hot. I swear to God, half of the project boards you ever go to, the confabulation part of your brain is working overtime, right, trying to make the numbers seem sensible. So it's no wonder why all those estimates didn't work. Planning poker, is it a pseudoscience? Well, we're using numbers, so it must be accurate. Yeah, we've got burn down charts. They look technical. I get a bit of confidence. If anyone at John's, if it was anyone at John's talk, which bias is this eating into? The myth of control. I've calculated numbers. I've got a burn down chart. I'm using the Fibonacci series. This must be true. And then there's always a pressure to increase the story points each team can do because somehow in the organizations we equate it as productivity. Yeah. So what happens? People game the system to make the burn down charts work. PMOs use the numbers to measure productivity of teams. People equate story points to time units. People write these into contracts. Yeah, contracts. I've heard of this lately. Some of the Indian subcontractors are contracting on story points. Others normalize the points to get all the teams using the same scale. So when us Agilistas went in there and said, well, you're going to use story points and we're going to work with the PMO, it's a bit like the scorpion and the frog. You know the story? Scorpion wants to get across the river, maybe across the river to Newport. It's going to Main D. And he says, I can't swim, I'm a scorpion. The frog says, well, what do you want me to do about it? He said, well, I can jump on your back, we can go across the river, and then I'll go off the other side. And the frog goes, you're a scorpion, you're going to sting me. So if I sting you, we both die. So why would I do it? And then halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the frog. And the frog says, why'd you do that? He says, I'm a fucking scorpion. PMOs are like that. They can't help, if they can get a number and they can try and measure it and benchmark it and get some predictability, they're going to use it. Okay, so where are we so far? The human brain is the most complex thing in the known universe, hugely flawed. Our early brains were hardwired for survival, not estimating. Numbers and language come late. So what are we going to do? Okay, we're going to go through these in a little bit. There's a slide for each. We're going to teach a team about biases. John did a good work on that this week. We're going to drive fear out. I'm an old Deming guy from about 20 years ago. I still can't believe we've got so much fear in offices. My biggest thing is trying to get psychological safety. SUD visualization. If you haven't got psychological safety, all you're doing is visualizing a lie. We're going to look at Cynefin for the Welsh year. All right? So we know what type of work we've got because there's different even things to think about that. We're going to look at forecasting based systems. I might be recommending a book that someone in the room wrote. And then we're going to talk about symbols and how symbols might be able to turn us around to protect the team from the scorpions. And again, we're going to talk about PI planning because the latest fad just now is safe in PI planning, where you all get together and you all decide what everyone's going to do in the next 90 days. Yeah, well, we're all biased, so now we've got 200 biased people in a room estimating. And then we're going to manage that as a kind of, as a delivery thing. So, teach about cognitive biases. If nothing else from this conference, I wasn't sure anyone else was talking about it, but I've seen so many people talk about it. I'm hopeful that everyone's going to go back into, learn a bit more, follow the leads, and just think about that. How did it feel when you were looking at the mirror and your eyes were lying? Scary, isn't it? That's a visual one. It's one we can see. We're going to talk a little about driving fear out. So I remember going to see John Smith when I was in the NHS, who was the Glasgow-based Celtic chairman. He was also worked for Tony Blair, and he got everyone in the room and he started swearing Glaswegian at everyone. When the fuck is this project going to happen? And everyone in the room just went into shutdown mode. Yeah, and I could tell exactly what was happening with everyone's brains. All the neocortexes in the room were confabulating. Yeah. All the limbic brains were trying to put themselves in a hierarchical kind of monkey pyramid as to where we were in, in line with who could speak. Even if you look at a select committee, there's that structure. It's only the people in the front row can speak. The other people in the back have to pass a note. Yeah. And it's that kind of whole setup that everyone's trying to put themselves into where their tribal place is. And everyone's reptilian brain just wanted everyone to leave that room. And we were in that room for 3 hours.
So in that context then,
They shouldn't have had the room.
so those that are actually probably not as senior as that individual and will actually go, that's not right, and actually speak out, whether it be publicly or take that person to one side.
Yeah, but
Are they going through the same?
our limbic brain doesn't want to do that. Our limbic brain really ties us into the tribe. So if you're there with your boss,
Or if you're a rebel?
I was, and you know what I said to him? He said, when's it going to be done? I said, we don't know from the data. Yeah, he said, what does that mean? It means we don't know from the data. And my boss came out afterwards, he said, oh, you're very brave. I wasn't very brave, it's just, we need to pull out the emotional state. We're all very, very emotional. Remember the elephant? Yeah, so when we're doing big planning things, don't do it before lunch. Your elephant's hungry. Yeah. Don't do it when there's kind of high stakes. Remember the company will fail if we don't do this. Yeah, don't do that kind of planning. Do experiments. Test some things, build the foundations. Yeah, don't get caught up into these kind of big promises. Because we always underestimate, we always lie. That's a great book. Yeah, because it's going to tell you how your brain works with fear. I'm a bit sad that I'm still, I've been doing this demoing stuff now for about 30 years and I'm still recommending people to drive fear out of the workplace. What's this? Yeah. Okay, so this is, chap Dave Snowden came up with this the structural way of thinking about work. It's really good. It says look, things that can be simple, they can be complicated, they can be complex, they can be chaotic. These are all ways of describing systems, and they can be disordered. Okay. A lot of the time with estimating, people get an estimate and they think it's a simple process. We've just added some constant. If I've got a box of Lego, and I want to add up how many pieces are there, it's a simple process. I just move one across each time. If I want to know, which app is going to be the best app for doing holidays in Wales, it's not that simple. We need to experiment, we need to do things. So, also looking at the different brains and the different way of, the way we think. So one thing, first of all, Agile kind of fits best in the complex things. So I've heard that from Jose and Jose's talk about business agility and things. And really that's when we're using our kind of system one thinking, We want to do experiments. We don't want to get too hung up on ideas. We don't want to get hung up on too much estimates and things. If it's complicated, well, you could do system 2 and just write it all out in a large list, because all complicated things are a few simple things in a sequence. Or you can get an expert. So if I was building a bridge, I could either, go and work out how to build a bridge from first principles, or I could get a bridge expert in to give a bit of an estimate. Because if you've built lots of bridges, you'll be fairly accurate with that. Now, we've also got chaotic systems down here, and that's where we've actually got no estimates. Talk a bit about that, but some things it's just not worth estimating. So when you get a new project, try triaging it into this, seeing where it fits. Will really help you think about how you're going to estimate or not. That's Vasco's book on no estimates. It's quite good, very controversial, because in business everyone wants an estimate. But I think it goes back down to the cone of uncertainty. Remember from the beginning? Yeah, let's find some things out and then let's give some, and then even better, get mature teams that have done things before. So Blink Estimates, that came out of Dan North. What he basically did was they were bidding for some work to change the entire platform for a television company. And he got 8 people in a room and he asked them on the card to write down how many people for what time they thought it would take. And everyone came back up with 8 people, 8 months. So he went back to client and said, look, we haven't done any estimating, but we think it's going to be 8 people, 8 months. Yeah, and these guys have done it before, and the project came along and it took 8 people for 8 months. So we didn't spend like 2 months estimating. But you need to have experts for that. The other thing is you can do things like Monte Carlo, simulation, and other models are available. Yeah? I don't know. Right, so if you're not sure how long it's going to take, right, run it for a couple of months, see where you're at, and then make some estimates. Yeah, because all you're doing is asking for some kind of seed capital. Let's not commit on an 18-month project. Let's run it for 2 months, see how far we get, see what we can learn. Google use this, so they'll get teams together to work on the work, and they actually instruct them to do the hardest bit first. Because if you fail at the hardest bit, we've actually sunk a minimum amount of costs. You'll get a bonus, you'll get some holiday time off, you'll be up in front of the company celebrating the fact that your project failed, because it was impossible to do. Yeah, what a different world. Estimate Goat. Anyone ever used Estimate Goat? Click the button, it gives you an estimate. It works sometimes. Yeah, most methods of estimating work sometimes. It'll take 27 points. Will it work? Outlook not so good. It's on the web. Seriously, you should try it. It freaks out project managers. This is one thing I came up with. We've got the Fibonacci numbers on the cards, but wouldn't it be better if we kind of put ranges on? So we know a 1's probably a 1. But instead of putting 5, why don't we just put it's a 4 to 6? Because already inherently we're kind of replying in that it's a probability. Yeah? And when PMOs start getting estimates like this, they can't add them up. So already they're not going to try and use it like a noose. And I guess a few of you have seen this one. This isn't mine, but I love it. You know, anything bigger than the 1's too big, and you should split it. Yeah. Yeah. Now, some of the cards out there have symbols as well. Yeah. I'd actually prefer just to have the numbers off and just have the symbols. And each of the teams come up with what their own symbols are. Anyone had this? How did the sprint go? Yeah, we're 2 story points short of the sprint goal of 40 points, but the other team delivered their sprint goal of 50 points. You guys are failing, you'll be reported to service lead or program lead, because we can't have this happening. Because if you keep on this, we're going to be late with the project. Your team are useless. What if a conversation went like this? How did the sprint go? We're 2 chalk ices short of a squirrel. Well, the other team delivered a whole salamander. For the last time, a squirrel's not a salamander. You know nothing about squirrels. Have you got nothing better to do? It stops the tyranny. Yeah? You can't take 2 teams and say that a squirrel's the same as a salamander. But PMOs do it all the time. So why not just use symbols? Yeah, we know that cards like this work better. So these are using the comparison part of the brain, overtly, and not the number part of the brain. That's why they're easier to use. Build your own comparisons. Yeah, like Cockney rhyming slang was designed so the police wouldn't understand you. Yeah, things like that. Your own teams, do your own symbolic estimating. Yeah. So again, just to recap, you have got different parts of your brain working. It's probably easier if you are going to be using anything you compare. The comparison part of the brain isn't numbers based, so you can use symbols. Develop your own symbols, probably more meaningful for your teams. And again, beware safe planning. Don't incarcerate people into a flawed plan. Going to recommend some books. Actionable Agile by Dan. The Kahneman book. If you really want to know about the story points thing, Mike's book. That's Jim's book. And these ones at the bottom are really, really good. Incognito especially. It's also on YouTube, so you can actually download them and watch them on telly. He did a series of shows. It's really amazing to see that. That's me. Any questions?